Koka sunarai sunarayanti. 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 Koka sunarai sunarayanti.
Hello, hi. Welcome to this new episode of the Mango TV podcast. Today we have again Matteo Norzi. Matteo is an artist, designer, filmmaker, and indigenous rights activist. His explorative artistic practice took him through several extensive journeys along 6 continents. His art has been supported by institutions such as Art in General New York, Headland Center for the Arts in California, Spinola Banna Foundation for the Arts, Italy. As part of the collaborative duo Isola and Norzi, he has exhibited internationally at venues such as Artistic Space New York, GAM Turin, NM&M Monaco, David Roberts Art Foundation in London, Fondazione Bevilacqua La Masa in Venice, Museum Bosen and Fondazione Sandretto Re Rebaudengo. His critically acclaimed directorial debut, the feature film Icaros, A Vision, co-directed with Leonor Caraballo, premiered in competition at the 2016 Tribeca Film Festival, bringing with him years of personal experience and extensive research on Amazonian history and culture. Matteo is co-founder and currently serving as the executive director of the Shipibo Conibo Center. Welcome, Matteo.
Hey, Giancarlo, thank you so much for the introduction. It feels like all life, flashing in front of you before something happening.
It's nice. It's nice to see you. Thank you for coming back. People can go and check a previous episode with Matteo. Today, I would like to go a little bit deeper on ayahuasca, on medicalisation of ayahuasca and psychedelic in general, about integration. But let's start. First thing first, tell us a little bit more about your relationship with the Shipibo and who they are, why they're so important in general, and for you, what's their cosmovision, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to meet with the Shipibo in 2011 for the first time, in a moment in time in which so many people from the West were kind of already feeling this attraction for the Americas, the indigenous people and their prophecies. I guess was a turning point for many of us. At the same time, was basically the beginning of spiritual tourism. So it's kind of like looking back now, almost like 14 years later, and it was a very different scenario than it is now. So I went there for the first time, lost in my first major midlife crisis, and with no experience whatsoever with other kind of psychedelics. I, together with my dear friend Leonor Caraballo, we went there to drink ayahuasca, and that's how this journey began for me. And since then it never ended yet. I'm still involved every day with Shipibo ideas and activism and healers and artists and so on.
But what touched you about them specifically? Why you decide to devote your life in creating a Shipibo Center in New York and representing their artists and stuff like that?
Look, the thing that struck me the most is the sophistication of their culture, which is so much well expressed by the designs, of Kene, of these like sacred patterns that the Shipibo artists adopt and paint and that is kind of like a symbol of this incredible sophistication that extends to a unique understanding of the human condition. So, for me, it became a personal journey at the same time, also in parallel, a very social, public journey, and became a form of, to find service, a way to give service with my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But so when you say vision of the human condition, can you summarize it? Can you explain it? I imagine that, like most of these indigenous culture, they have this concept of animism, right? Which
Yeah.
everything is connected. The river is my brother. But can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so basically, I want to start by the patterns, because I think that's the key, entrance. You need to see, this very sophisticated culture that has no other kind of written language and decides to cover everything with Shipibo design. So, so many people, they've been asking themselves, so what do they mean? What is this all about? And I think in the quest for these answers, it's a good way to reply to your question. So basically, I think there are three levels of understand of three different ways to understand the patterns. One is let's say aesthetic. The Shipibo express this beauty that is the beauty of the energy of life growing. So, they cover everything with these designs, exactly like, a tree is spreading out its branches to capture the sun, or let's say a colony of moss is covering a stone, this very same idea of life displaying itself in space, and that the beauty that is kind of like associated with it, it's a way to understand the aesthetics of the Shipibo. The second element, which is the one that brings you back to talking about ayahuasca, it is the synesthetic dimension. So the Shipibo declare with these designs the existence of a dimension in which sound can become vision. Sound signals can pop up as little dots of color. And so it's kind of like a testimony of the existence of this realm, that can be accessed with plant medicines and other means. And then the third one, that for me is the most important really, is an ethical dimension. So the patterns are also a visual manifesto for indigenous ethics. And, and this ethics talks about reciprocity and also service, to use a word I already mentioned. It's kind of like a, a compromise to sacrifice the ego to put yourself at the service of kin. But then this kin extends beyond the human, extends to animal, to plant, to river, to the forest, and all of a sudden, you have a way to understand the animism in a way that is useful to address the climate catastrophes that we're living. So it's almost like a spiritual understanding of ecology that basically gives you new tools to imagine ecological solutions that are not anthropocentric, And so in that sense, I feel that Shipibo ideas are very relevant for the future. And so again, besides the need of putting myself at service to solve my own personal issues, as many others do, you find something that is so relevant maybe for the future of my own kids, and the next generation. So all that together became for me some sort of like mission. And now I have a strong reason to wake up in the morning, which is, bringing forward the mission of the organization that I direct, the Shipibo Conibo Center.
Beautiful. But so on the principle number two, you call it the synesthesia, where like you can see color and hear, you can hear color and see notes, and you says it's like a different realm. But can you elaborate a little bit? What do you mean by different realm?
So here we talk about healing and medicine. So the Shipibo have these technologies that are a mixture of substances that they ingest and actions that the healers adopt, that include singing and the use of perfume and of other devices that in combination they lead to access a dimension of the mind in which transformation is possible. So basically, it is exactly like there is, I don't know, a disease that can be intended as psychosomatic, the Shipibo kind of like master a psychosomatic medicine. So something that through the mind is able to trigger transformation in the body, and or at least a level of awareness in the body that is very hard to access otherwise. Uh, that is a synesthetic space, and they believe, the Shipibo, that when you are sick, your designs lost order. So the work of the healer is to unravel them and replace them with orderly ones. And so much of us, can understand this as a metaphor, but it's probably even something more than a metaphor. It's really a condition of the nervous system, of the lymphatic system, and whenever your body is stressed, more than usual because of the psychedelic experience, so the stiff points in the system are made evident. So, and in that sense, it become also a diagnostic tool, of a self-diagnostic tool to understand, for example, where your body needs to be taken care of.
And so the healing happens on an energetic frequency level.
Yeah, so basically, then I want to remind that the drinking of ayahuasca for the patient is something relatively recent. Ayahuasca is really a medicine that the doctor drinks, not the patient. So it is more like a spiritual X-ray or a diagnostic tool that the shaman adopts in order to see where your issues are. Where you store pain. Many of us have, maybe, I don't know, back pain, chronic back pain, but that is probably has often a psychological origin. Maybe we were not able to overcome a grief that happened at some point in our life, and so we kind of take that pain and store it in that place. So basically, the idea of the patient drinking ayahuasca is quite a recent one. So the shaman basically take ayahuasca to access this energetic field that you mentioned, in order to see where your physical issue lays. Many of us have back pain, of like chronic pain, and often we go to the orthopedic, and somehow maybe that is instead a consequence of grief or some other trauma, and we store that pain in the body. And the West fails to understand that by dividing the body in different organs and compartments, and the Shipibo, they have this wisdom of addressing issue as they were part of a whole. So
Holistic.
Holistically. So whenever there is, I don't know, there is no distinction between mind and body, in the same way that we can try to distinguish them with our understanding of Western medicine. So this is just like an example of what I mean with psychosomatic medicine or treatment, when I talk about ayahuasca.
Yes, but I'm very curious. Sorry to be so specific, but I understand the spiritual X-ray. But then once the pain, the psychological knots, the concentration has been found either in your stomach or in your back, as a consequence of stored trauma. Then how, to the best of, maybe we don't even have the language to explain, but how would you? I understand the diagnosis, but then how is the therapy?
Well, that's a good question. Usually the therapy includes other plants beyond ayahuasca.
Mm.
So, in order to become a healer, Shipibo practitioners, they go through long plant diets, and then they tell you, I learn the properties of the plant from the plant themselves. And many of us keep on asking, what does that mean? And I think the solution is kind of like simpler than we can possibly, fathom. It is simply because if you take a plant and you are very self-aware of your body, and you feel that that plant is kind of like having an effect on your liver, all of a sudden you know that when somebody else also has a liver problem, might want to try to take that plant to solve that issue. So, usually ayahuasca is a diagnostic tool. And then after the issue is identified, the patient is given different plants in order to treat it.
Yeah, this is super interesting and is widely misunderstood in the West.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. At the same time, ayahuasca is also a self-diagnostic tool. And often, since we mentioned that some of these issues are psychological, just by knowing that you are storing pain in your back, you might have access to ways to release it. So, now I contradict myself. Ayahuasca is a diagnostic tool, but it can also be a medicine, because by being aware of what you have, then you access ways to release it.
Yeah. No, it's very clear. It's very clear. Okay, so I had on the podcast Ben Delonen from Icy Ears, and like you, he's done a lot of healing with the Shipibo. He calls them energetic surgeon, and he says that in the West, now that we medicalize those plants, mushroom maybe first, but DMT, there's all this trial to medicalize this compound. We believe that it's an object. It's like a pill. But the reality is that medicine is not an object, it's a process. And it takes the Shipibo a long time to use this medicine, because they needs to go back in your ancestry. They work on your family line. Do you resonate with this description? And can you maybe comment and elaborate on that?
Yeah, so let's say that first of all, ayahuasca is a way to access your subconscious. So it's interesting to understand how the Shipibo, for example, intend the subconscious, how they talk about it. So for them, the subconscious is a flooded dimension, like, the flooded forest of the Amazon is an underworld that is submerged. It's kind of like made of water. So it's a mental space that is murky. And it's like a riverbed. It's also profuse of dangerous creatures, like monsters, that kind of live in darkness and lurks within. But at the same time, it's also a source of knowledge, where only the most powerful shamans can dive into, in order to draw the solutions for others in their community. So basically, everyone carries around their own demons, exactly like, in our understanding of subconscious, there is this space of the mind in which, these creatures and entities live with us. But at the same time, it also the space where the ancestors lived. So you were talking about ancestral trauma. So it's also the place in which the wisdom of the ancestors continue to resonate. And when I talk about resonate, I like to make it appear like a vibration that keep on spreading generation after generation. So it is really, a place in which the voice of the people who precede us keep on, echoing, and for them, these are the Shipibo of the mind, are like idealistic figures, that have like incredible manners and beautiful designs and live in harmony with nature. So it's kind of like, for them themselves, it is a space of with an idealistic view of indigeneity, that is no longer part of the everyday life, but at the same time, it is a space to strive towards. So I go back and close the loop and talk about the ethical aspect. So, in this space of the mind in which the ancestor lives is also where the Shipibo, in a circular idea of time, draw upon to imagine their own future, and to kind of like teach to the next generation the ethical behaviors and for their own future. And this is all somehow what a Shipibo feels every time that sees a Shipibo pattern. It's like a visual manifesto of this connection with the past and this compromise to implement it in the future. So, I don't know exactly if I answered to your question, but what I want to say is that this subconscious, it becomes a place in which you can dive into in specific moment of your life when you need to overcome some personal issue. So let's say, if to use a Western word, when you have a mental health problem, you dive, like a scuba diver with a shaman that holds your hand, go down and see these like sea creatures, interact with them, and hopefully try to solve an issue that you have with them, and you come on the other side exactly like it happened to me, at the service of something larger than yourself. Because so often the personal problem finds solution in the community, in putting yourself, feeling yourself as part of something bigger than yourself. And for the Shipibo, that is very evident. And I think many of us who go to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca can confirm, that so often they go there, they're so much caught up with their own problems, and they come the other side, with a new ecological understanding, with a new social instinct, with the idea of giving, and all of a sudden, the ayahuasca makes you feel that you're part of something bigger than yourself and your clan.
But so let's see with a specific example. So imagine a little boy who's, is like 6, 7, 8, and the mother leaves the household because it's too much for her. She was not equipped to be a mother. And then he ended up a series of, conflictual and destructive relationship. And, this little boy heart keep on closing, and he's not equipped to have a loving relationship. And he goes through a series of, destructive relationship. He's cannot have a girlfriend, cannot open his heart, and he wants to address this. So the Shipibo, takes the ayahuasca, do the spiritual X-ray, and see in the murky river of the boy subconscious all this pain and the demons of his childhood that was not allowed to interact healthy and that was not equipped to open his heart and to be vulnerable with another woman. So who does the work? How does the Shipibo deals with those monster of this boy childhood?
Yeah, I mean, a quick answer is with love. So, and now I'm gonna kind of like elaborate. So let's say that ayahuasca brings you exactly where you need to go. That's the power of the medicine. So you drink, this little boy drinks ayahuasca and goes in the first ceremony in the Amazon, and he's in front of his biggest fear, the traumatic experience. It's an exploration of his own emotional memory, and he's reliving the moment in which some specific situation generated this trauma. However, in this moment, he's not alone. The shaman is next to him, is singing to him a song of courage, is spreading the perfume of flowers, and it is expressing universal love and empathy. So all of a sudden, this traumatic memory gets reprojected over, rewired over a new experience. And it's also so intense because, this boy maybe it was drinking ayahuasca the first time. And I always mention that the first ceremonies are much more powerful than any other you're going to have in your life. So, and in that sense, that memory is overwritten with a new one in which there is this song of love, this sense of belonging, this idea of being part of a community. And he wakes up after the ceremony and he's made aware of the trauma that his mind had removed. And not only that, there is a different temperature around it, a different mood. And all of a sudden, it's not so threatening to him, and so he can use it through integration and and other tools to make it evident and worked out, and often the problem can be addressed in a new way.
But so let me ask you this. You said that when this subconscious painful material is highlighted and brought to the surface, then the shaman channel this, you call it, cosmic love and cosmic empathy.
Yeah.
But so where is that coming from? That's a universal force of the universe that they channel like a channeler.
Of course, I mean the love exists. The Shipibo, they themselves drink ayahuasca while they're curious, so they access this feeling of the energy of life
From the cosmos.
from the cosmos. I mean, they say, to use their own words, they say Shipibo designs appear in every level of the cosmos. You can see them on the shell of an egg. If you look very carefully, you can see them in the sky of the Milky Way. So, there is this kind of like parallelism in between the order in nature and the order of that is required in order to have a healthy life inside our own mind. So I go back to that kind of like beautiful metaphor. When you have an issue, you lost the order of your patterns. So the work of the shaman is to draw them again with new orderly patterns. But these patterns obviously pre-exist. They exist, in all levels of nature and in all expressions of organic life.
Yeah, yeah. You can say that love, in a way, might be synonymous of consciousness, and now these new quantum physicists, they are like proposing a new way to look at the structure of reality, including consciousness as a basic pillar with time and space. So, what I'm trying to discuss with you is that, is it possible that it's a spiritual exercise? They're bringing down something from a different world.
Yeah, it's a way to access source. So this is another interesting stuff. So the Shipibo, they kind of like cherish a golden age. I mentioned before, in which the ancestors were dressing so elegantly and they were living in harmony with nature, and then they kind of like lament the current time as a moment in which these incredible customs are no longer available. However, they also say that through plant medicine, you can access that space of the mind in which all these things are still existing. So basically, it is not simply a question of tradition or loss in tradition. It is a question of storing precious charged knowledge in a secure space from which, through the shamanic journey, you can access wisdom and almost download it, bring it back to this world. So there is no need of remember everything as long as you have the sonic key, they say. It's an Icaro, it's a song, the sonic key to open that source, and then you can use whatever is inside at your disposal without obviously abusing it. There's always, there's also tension in between abusing the power that plants give you.
Yeah. So it's a spiritual practice.
It's a spiritual practice. There is a word that is all covered with design that I think many of us who did psychedelics can recognize as a portal that you can pass through in order to access your own emotional memory, but also, your generational emotional memory, also the emotional memory of your clan, going back thousands of years. And when you access that, the patterns kind of like open up, and all of a sudden you have like very figurative visions, with your grandmother, or maybe some divinity or some spirit of a plant, and all these entities then become things that you can engage with, ask questions, and receive novel answers. So I don't think the right question, if I understand well where you want to go, is that is this in my mind or it is this another dimension altogether. I think there is no difference in between these two realms because in our mind we have access to another dimensions altogether.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On a non-dual world, it's just a question of semantic.
Exactly.
Okay, so is it fair to say that you describe ayahuasca practice, but if you look at Maria Sabina and the Aztec and people that have been working with the sacred magic mushroom, is probably similar practice, right?
Yeah, so that is what I mean, I work a lot with Shipibo artists, so I'm gonna like bring back the component of art. What is so striking about the shamanic journey that is so ancient that links, cultures from very different parts of the world, probably because it was the spiritual practice of Homo sapiens before it spread around the globe. Even back then, they were kind of like using the shamanic journey to reach other worlds. And what is cinema? Say you're a producer, we did cinematic work together. What is cinema if not another attempt to reach another world? To imagine another world. The same for art, a play or virtual reality. All these are just basically reiteration of the shamanic journey. And what is very fantastic of the Shipibo that maybe is not so evident in other culture, that arts, healing arts, and spirituality, they were all born from the hands of an herbalist, very
Mm,
probably a woman, that creating this tincture would paint the design, but
mm.
also drink them. The word tinctura in Latin still keeps this interesting ambiguity in between color and medicine. And,
Interesting.
and so the tincture, the word is the etymology of this word. We can kind of like see how there is no difference from let's say, the prequel of art, the prequel of spirituality, the prequel of medicine. It was all basically part of this shamanic space. That the shaman, for example, would journey to the other dimension to find the lost soul of a person that was sick. And if the shaman was successful in bringing back the soul, the patient would recover. If the shaman was unsuccessful, the patient would die. And this is like very much applies to disease and how we can describe disease even today, even in the setting of a hospital.
Fascinating. Are you familiar with the magic mushroom?
I'm not an expert. I had done a few magic mushroom trips by myself, but I need to say that I like to focus on practices in which the compound goes also along with the work of the shaman. So you mentioned Maria Sabina. I don't know much about their songs, but I feel that even in that culture, it was not simply ingesting
No, of course not.
the mushroom, but there was always also some singing or like playing drums involved in order to kind of like create a sonic ladder to reach this other dimension.
Exactly, exactly. It's all about, no, it's not all about, but there is this component of other dimension to download and access, source or divinity. So what do you think about, maps is now, I think we just received the result of phase 3 of MDMA. So in the psychedelic business world, they say that if they're gonna turn MDMA into a medicine in 2024, next will be psilocybin in 2025. So the way that Maps and other, Compass is a multi-billion-dollar company quoted in Nasdaq. They're doing clinical trial with mushroom all around the world. So this compound will become a medicine, and the way that there's different model, but basically MAPS, they are training a new generation of psychotherapists that will have the permission to give this mushroom to their patients. So people will not be able to buy themselves in the pharmacy, but like prescription drugs now. If you want Prozac, you have to go to the psychiatrist and they give you the prescription and then you can buy it. For mushroom, maybe you can't even buy. You probably have to do it somewhere under the supervision of